Welcome back to Spirit Spells and Magic. We've made it to Imbolc, and it's also on a full moon. It's also a supermoon in Aquarius. So I'll be getting out a bottle and bottling up that moon water for tonight to get those good Aquarian vibes. Now, Imbolc marks the point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It's an almost transition into spring. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer, and that's always good. Imbolc is a time of new. It's when you first start to see the signs of spring coming through the winter death, so to speak. We did an episode on Imbolc last year and spoke about Bridget, and we did the Bridget's Cross, so we won't be doing that this year. But by all means, if you want to make a Bridget's Cross and light some candles for Bridget, I'll be doing that too. And you can make a corn dolly if you choose. That's totally up to you as well. But we're going to be doing something a little different this year, just to mix up things a little. I've got the video for our bread and butter pudding that we made last month, and we're going to be doing a protection spell. We've started the witch's new year off, so it's a good time to ensure that the boundaries of your home are well protected. Now, with protection spells, there's a lot of them going, so you can really have a look around and see what kind of spell that you're after. Have you got a lot of time to do a protection spell? Or are you like me and so busy that you've got barely enough time to think about a protection spell, let alone go and do one or get the necessary items to do half the spells that are in the old books? I've got a couple of books with me and I'm having a quick look through them to see what suits my needs. Now, there's a lot of different spells out there that you can cast against evil. Now, I don't really have evil to fight against at the minute, which is it's always a good thing. But what I really want is just a general protection spell. Nothing too sinister. I don't have a lot of enemies. I don't think I've got any, or I hope I don't have any. But if you were to have a particular enemy, you wouldn't be going and doing a hex on them or anything like that. That's not good practice. But you can freeze them out. And a good way to freeze them out is using a freeze spell, of course. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can cast various spells. You may look up on Google or some books and come across a spell that's done 5 to 10 different ways. Now, as I've mentioned previously, it's not what you use in the spell, whether you use a lot of equipment or very few pieces of equipment. It's your intention and your power behind the spell that actually is the driving force of the spell and will ensure that it works. But you can have as many items, or you can use the bare necessities. The substitute items, white candles, rosemary, always goes down well. But if you want to get elaborate, by all means, go for your life. There are plenty of spells out there that people have created, or create your own. When I first started, I found the spells in the old books really overwhelming and intimidating. There was casting circles and using St. John's wort and stuff when I was a teenager I'd never heard of before. And I couldn't get hold of that stuff. Man, I was 16. I barely had enough money to get myself a Pepsi. But still, there were some books out there that had bare minimum spells or had substitute items, which basically coasted me along. These days it's a little easier to get your hands on things. We've got the internet and it's so much easier to find what you want. All it is locating a store which has the item, paying for it, and it gets sent to you. How easy is that? But it's still pretty pricey. And if you've got a family, you don't want to be spending hundreds of dollars on your witching practice. Well, you can if you want, if you can afford it, but who can afford it these days? Don't mind my dog crunching biscuits in the back. I've tried to make him be quiet, but it's just not going down that way today. It's a full moon. Everyone's a little wild and crazy and hungry by the sounds. So, protection spells. There's plenty of them out there, but you choose what's best for you. But it's your intention and power behind it that will make the spell work. And I only ever do really simple spells, and they've seemed to have taken hold. So I'm happy with that. And I'm still here. Nothing bad's happened. So something must be working. But for the freezer spell is basically freezing someone out. If they've done you wrong or someone's working at you in a bad way, just being a general ass, and you want to get rid of them or stop whatever it is that's happening to you, the onslaught, best way to do it, and least karma attracting way, it's your general nice F off. Without actually saying it, or without being nasty in any sense, they won't even know that you've done it. You don't have to say a thing. As the spell name suggests, freezing. We use the freezer for this one. Now, to start the freezer spell, what you need to do is cleanse your area. If you've got a Palo Santo stick or a sage smudge stick or a simple incense stick, run around cleansing your house, cleanse the work area, cleanse whatever items that you use before you use them, and then we're ready to go. Ideally, if you have a photo of the person, or you can even simply write their name down on a piece of paper. You find a container or vessel to hold the spell in. I just have a simple Cotty's raspberry jam jar, but you can use anything you want. It's really just something to hold the items within. For the spell to work, the container needs to be able to be closed tightly. You place the name of the person or the photo inside the jar, place that inside. Now what they say is tap water's not usually strong enough for a protection spell. I don't believe that, but each to their own. But to enhance it a little bit, they say to put some salt or vinegar, or both, into the jar first before putting in the water, because we need something that will freeze around those items. And water, I mean, let's face it, water's cheap. You don't want to empty out a whole thing of vinegar into a jar for a spell, even though it's cheap. But some people do that. I'm just going to use water and some salt and some vinegar, a couple of drops of salt, a couple of drops of vinegar. And you would fill the jar to the top, ensuring you tightly put the jar lid on or container lid on. Once you've sealed the jar, to officially seal it, you could either drip candle wax over the lid. I've done that in a previous protection spell and the self-care jar episode. So you're basically lighting a candle. Black's a good one for protection. If you've got a black candle, if you don't have a black candle, white or any other colour that you have, drip the candle wax over the jar so that it drips down the sides, and that's a good sealant. If you don't have a candle, aluminium foil also works, but putting the shiny side to the outside, the dull side toward the jar, and that's like a reflectant, reflects evil, something like that. But definitely place your intention on it. While you're dripping the candle wax is a good time to start thinking about protection and the particular person you're wanting to freeze out and things like that. So that's a good time to put all your intention into it, sealing the jar. But all steps through the process, you should really be thinking about freezing the person out and how nice it would be when they're not bothering you anymore. That's always a good thought too. And there you have it, and you leave that in the freezer. And over the coming weeks, you should see a change in the behaviour of the person. They're not as annoying or vindictive or vicious, and you'll start to see them back off. If you don't see them back off, it's time to redo the damn spell and put a little bit more intention into it this time. Now, before we go on to our next spell, I wanted to show you our bread and butter pudding. It was a recipe that we made a couple of weeks ago, actually, maybe a month ago, and we were going to try and get it up for the last video, but it didn't work out that way. But for this recipe, you need 12 slices of bread, and you butter them, and then you cut them diagonally, place it in a cooking dish or casserole dish, tray, whatever you have that can be put in the oven, and you place the buttered side down, and that stops it from sticking. Now what you're going to do is butter all 12 slices and cut them diagonally in half, and place them in this way in various positions so it fills up from the bottom up, and making sure that you don't have any gaps. And as you go adding a layer, you place some raisins or sultanas over the top of the bread. This is quite a simple recipe that I even got my daughter to do for me while I filmed. But we also found at the end result that it didn't seem to be as moist or had enough mixture. So for this recipe, definitely add a bit more wet ingredient if you can, because we found, or less bread maybe, less bread would possibly help as well, depending on how high you wanted to build your bread and butter pudding up. You could probably get away with using about 8 slices instead, but if you wanted to go with the whole 12, then definitely add a bit more wet ingredient and ensure that it's kind of covered, because we just found it very dry. So maybe alter the recipe when you go to do it to your liking. But the basic gist is to butter the bread, layer it, put sultanas in every couple of layers or every layer. We did it every layer because, we had the sultanas anyway, and they all like it. So, but continue doing that until you have had sufficient amount of slices in the pudding, and top it off with more sultanas. I had a quick look at some other recipes, and they basically stated where we've added 1 cup of milk to put 2 cups of milk in there, or at least 1.5 cups. And where we put, this recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup of cream, and they've put in a whole cup of cream. So you can pretty much move between those measurements. I would go for more rather than less in this case, depending on how many slices of bread you put in. The other recipe that said for more ingredients of the liquid kind, to only put 8 slices of bread in there, as well as cutting the crust off. So you can take your pick with how you want to make it. This is just how we made ours. We weren't that disappointed, but it would have been nicer had it been a bit more moist and less dry. We're definitely going to have another crack at it at some point, and we'll update you with how that went too. So after you've put your cup of milk, or 2 cups, between a cup and 2 cups of milk, as well as maybe a cup of cream, we put in a teaspoon of vanilla essence or extract, whatever you've got. We usually go between the two. The recipe also calls for 4 eggs. Now 4 eggs is a lot of eggs, and I've noticed that over a couple of different recipes, the eggs are consistent. So it's 4 eggs to every recipe that I've found. It's just the level of moistness from the milk and cream, I suppose, that you can change up. So once you've mixed that in, whisk that nicely. Now we add 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar, or 55 grams. It said on the recipe, we just made it 1/4 of a cup. We found that it wasn't overly sweet either, so you can always add a little bit more brown sugar if you prefer a sweeter pudding. And mix that all together, all the wet ingredients, sugars and the vanilla essence, plus the eggs. Mix that up so it's all pretty well combined. We simply pour it over the bread and sultana layers. But as you can see, as we're pouring it in, it kind of touches the top as you pour it on, but it does not fill all the way to the top. It kind of filled about halfway. It did kind of compact a little bit after we placed it in the oven, but not enough to keep it that moist. But after you've poured the mixture over the top of the bread, you can always add a couple more sultanas if you prefer, and lightly sprinkle some brown sugar over the top. We did. Made it nicer. Before putting it in the oven, they do suggest that you let it sit for about half an hour, just so it can absorb all the juices, I guess. And then once you've left it for a little while, place it in the oven. Now they do suggest, if you have a bain-marie, to fill the water up to halfway up the side of the dish. You can try that, or just straight bake it like we did. That may be why it dried out a little bit as well, but you can always add more mixture to counter that. The idea would be to have a shorter layers so as that the mixture would raise up and kind of all the bread can absorb the mixture. But it wasn't too bad for a first try at bread and butter pudding. And it was one of those dishes that was served, especially in Ireland. They didn't have a lot to work with, so they used what they had. And if they made a big batch of bread and perhaps the bread was coming to a stage where it might have been going to be a little stale soon, they would make it last longer by putting it into a pudding, inject liquid into it, and thus keeping the food for longer and feeding them for longer. We found it to be a little dry, but we're going to have another try at it because we've had bread and butter pudding before and enjoyed it, so we'll definitely be doing this one again. Another spell I've been looking at doing, which I'm going to do now, is a protection spell, but it's a very basic protection spell. It's a home protection spell, and for this spell, you will need to cleanse your home first. And once you've cleansed your home, you will need some rock salt, pink salt, Himalayan salt. The salt type doesn't matter so much as the intention behind it, and peppercorns. Now, if you're like me and don't have a lot of time to do spells, this is a beautiful spell. It's just 2 ingredients. If you can, find a bowl, and if you've got a mortar and pestle, that's usually a good way to crush them down. As you're crushing down the peppercorns and the salt together, think about the protection of your house and how important it is to have protection. Once again, this is just an addition to protection you already have on your house, like locking windows and doors and alarm systems and things like that. Dogs, they're always good security. But your intention should be warding off anything that would do harm to your family. I don't have anything but in particular, so mine will be just a basic protection spell, and I'll be thinking about the safety of my family inside. Once you've sufficiently placed your intention onto the salt and pepper combined, and you've felt like you've crunched them down enough, pour that into a container and go around your home on the boundaries and sprinkle this mixture, and sprinkle the mixture along the boundary of your home. You don't have to make a massive batch of it. I'd say just a little pinch here and there along the walls. Pepper and salt aren't going to attract too many vermin or anything like that. So you're pretty right. If you were going to be putting honey around or something like that, I'd say don't do that. But salt and pepper should be fine sprinkled around your home. Just if you're going to do some vacuuming later, maybe do the vacuuming first and then sprinkle. Just so you're not breaking the spell, really. It's something that you could do really every couple of months. So to keep the house well protected, your intention involved. But a protection spell could be even as simple as you laying in bed at night, and I've done this, and thinking of each wall of your house and just saying something to yourself. This house is protected. This house is protected. Something along those lines. I've noticed also that people will often add in by my will, as in, this house is protected by my will, or the southern wall of my house is protected by my will. The eastern wall of my house is protected by my will. However you want to say it, whatever feels right to you, go for it. That's what you need to say. A spell should come easily. It shouldn't be something so difficult that you're doubting whether or not you're doing it right. You don't want to have any doubts at all. You want to be as confident as you can when you're committing yourself to this spell and completing the spell. You need to have all intention and focus on the fact that it will work. And it will work. You've just got to make sure you believe it will. Now, whether you want to put it in the inside of your house or the outside of your house is up to you. I'd prefer to do it inside because you don't have ants or anything taking away your bits of protection spell or the wind blowing it away. It's a good, easy spell to ensure that your house is protected and you feel like you've done something to protect yourself and your family inside your home. You should feel secure in knowing that your house and home is safe and warded off from evil or anyone that wants to do you harm. What we'll look at next episode is a charm bag. I wanted to do a charm bag for a while now, a protection charm bag, because while you're at home, you're safe. But when you go out into the wilderness, into the big wide world out there, you need to protect yourself out there too. If you feel like you need protection, that is. It's totally up to you whether or not you need protection. But it's handy to have. Why not? It's not going to harm you, is it? But we'll definitely look into a charm bag next episode. So for this Imbolc, make sure that you've got your altar ready. Light a couple of candles for Bridget or Freya, whoever you choose to light candles in honour of. And hopefully you'll get a good harvest or a good year to come as well. Remembering, of course, we've just started our witchy new year in the Southern Hemisphere. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you all have a really good Imbolc. Spring's on its way. It's a time for excitement. Here in the south, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up for us. So it's time to turn those dark clouds and frowns upside down and start looking towards the coming months, because just around the corner we've got Halloween, even though Samhain was months ago. But we've got the best of both worlds. We've got Christmas and Halloween coming up, as well as the beautiful weather to go along with it. What could be better, really, than summer, as well as all this exciting stuff? I'd really like to get another episode up before Ostara on the 21st of September. So stay tuned. Hopefully that will happen. No guarantees. It's a busy life, but I'm trying. But bear with me, and we shall see you in the next episode. Have a great day. Namaste.